Hey everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of 7 Minute Scaling Secrets, where we interview entrepreneurs and learn the secret on how they scaled up their businesses. Today, we have two special guests, my dear friends Anna and Ellen, and we're going to have a deep dive into what made us entrepreneurs and how that journey started. Interesting fact, I actually don't really know some of the things that we're going to cover in this conversation. So this is going to be a all expose, a no holds barred conversation. And we were just talking about it. We don't actually know Ellen's story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not an
Ellen is
interesting
a
story.
serial entrepreneur. Cereal, cereal like food
Yeah.
cereal. No, he's a multiple entrepreneur. Um, Ellen, I know you started your business in school. You met your co-founder in
Yes.
school, and this is a special person to you as well. But we don't really know the story. Tell us a bit more
Yeah.
about that. This episode was brought to you by Superscaling. Join the Superscaling Ignite program today and learn how you can systemize and superscale your business so that your revenues can grow to at least $100,000 a month with a productive team from all over the world, raving fans as clients, and happy founders who have true freedom. Visit superscaling.com/ignite today, and now back to the episode.
So we did meet during the period where we were still in school, but we were not in the same school because she was from NUS and I was from SMU. But we actually didn't start off as business partners. We obviously were dating before we started our first business, and then we sold our first business, and then we got into our second business, which is Alchemy now. For me, actually, why I wanted to give entrepreneurship a try, right, was because for me, there was only two areas that I think I would be interested to build my life around. One was either a career in finance, which I think will be quite up Anna's alley. The other would be to try my hand on building startups or going to entrepreneurships. Then I was in SMU between what, '06 to 2010. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that was also right where subprime happened. And so I saw a lot of ugly things that were happening in the banks. And then obviously the bank wasn't hiring at that point in time. So even if you want getting, you probably can't. But there was also a lot of things that made me realize that maybe as exciting as that might sound, maybe I want to try my hand on entrepreneurship. And I wanted to also make it a point to try entrepreneurship earlier on before I had significantly more baggage and more dependence. If you have kids or, if your parents really need you to supplement their income, then it becomes harder and harder to pull the trigger to go into entrepreneurship. So I wanted to just ensure that before I have many of those liabilities, just get started early.
Wow. So your then fiance or girlfriend,
Then
Verlene,
girlfriend.
who now is your wife, uh, the topic of business, how did that start? Did you convince her? Did she convince you? Did you guys just like suddenly think of that idea? Like how did it begin?
Yeah. So for me, it was quite a journey. I was reading a lot of self-help books, and then I was just thinking about what was my personality, right? Whether I see myself sitting down in a 9 to 5 job for the rest of my life, and the answer was no. And then that kind of like decided for my side, lah. And for her, right, it was kind of subconscious because her dad is an entrepreneur. So growing up, she has seen her dad, take on risks, get rewards, gotten good gotten good returns on the business. And then for her, it was just a very natural progression that she's something that they wanted to do. But I guess what's not obvious at that point in time, right, was how do we end up with our first business, which is Soyato, a low calorie ice cream, and also Alchemy now, where we are helping with sugar and carb control. It's at the point in time, it wasn't clear that we're going to head towards food business or we're going to end up coming up with solutions that helps to improve people's lives. But what I also realized about myself, at least, is that I think I need to really feel the problem in order to work on the business. So the first business was a low calorie ice cream business, right? It happened because we were going out on a lot of dates. And then when we go out for dates, right, we go out for ice cream. I guess partly also because I was poor student, it's cheaper to go for ice cream than go for a meal. So we went to a lot of ice cream parlors, and then we realized that people who eat a lot of ice cream tend to also put on a lot of weight. So I wanted to eat and I didn't want to grow fat. So that was one of the core motivation for us to want to start the first business. We subsequently sold that off to a restaurant group in 3 years after starting it. And then we move on to Alchemy, where we help with sugar and carb control so people can enjoy carbs and sugars without putting on weight is one, but also more importantly to fight the global diabetes problem. And that really started because of my family history. It's been well ingrained over the decades that I was growing up. Sounds a bit old, but it's been almost 4 decades now that I've been around. But what happened was that both my grandmothers, they passed away due to diabetes complications. And diabetes obviously is a problem that's linked to the diet, especially if the diet has a very high refined carbohydrate component to it. And then my mom has six siblings, right? Five of them are diabetic. My mom is still
Wow.
safe. Yeah, so for me, it was very clear that, either we have a technology that comes out to help people, or, one day it's going to hit my mom, one day it's going to hit me, and I really don't want that. And I've seen so many instances that kept shouting to me that, we need a solution. Like, for
Yeah.
example, there was once, right, my aunt, she went to for a checkup. She was
Okay.
supposed to have a blood drawn, right, to measure her blood sugar levels. And she basically just told the doctor that she lied flat out to the doctors and said that, oh, I have a phobia for needles. Can I contribute my urine samples instead? So what she did was that she went to the washroom and then she diluted her samples with water.
Oh my God.
Just so that she can cheat the test, hey guys, my test result not so bad. Can I have my sugar coffee? Can I have my rice? Can I have my this and that? And cheating of the test, of course, is not a solution. Eventually the consequence come back. But it left a deep impression in me like that, I think we need a good solution. Otherwise, quality of life for everybody, not just my family, will be affected. And that's how we then, ventured out and started alchemy.
Holy crap. I love the fact that it's all tied to like something that's personal to you, a
Yeah.
problem. That's one of the things that I think is the fundamental pillars of a good business, that it's rooted in a purpose, a problem, or solving a need in the market. What about you, Anna? How did you get started?
Actually, it's quite interesting. As I was listening to Alan, I realized that we have known each other for so many years and hang out so often, but I've never heard his stories, right? Okay, for me, I think it's very interesting that I'm speaking to the two of you because in my head, I just keep thinking that the two of you are the OG entrepreneurs, right? You guys were entrepreneurs before entrepreneurs become cool, you know? I, uh, I think
Hmm.
Alan and I think three of us graduated around the same time. I graduated in
Around, yes.
There's a big range there.
it's not,
Around.
I guess I graduated the earliest in '08, right? And unlike the both of you, I've never wanted to be a entrepreneur or a founder. All I wanted to do was actually be in finance. And the reason is because I wanted to I mean, unlike Alan's wife, girlfriend, then my family had our own family business, and we have always struggled with it. And during financial crisis, it was I think we were not doing very well. So growing up, I always recognized that money was hard, and I knew that being the oldest daughter, the oldest kid, I have to be the one paying off the debt, right? So all I wanted to do was work in finance, get financial security. Yeah. So I actually spent about 10 years in finance. In various departments, the last being wealth management. And I left. Uh, and even until then, I never wanted to be a founder. I thought that was the worst horrible thing that you can do to yourself and your family. Yeah. And I
So
think I speak
funny
for
story. I am the eldest in my family too, and I took it to my upon myself to take like clear the family debt and take care of the family's financial situation. But for me, it was like very clear that I had to run a business in order to do that. It's so strange how we are like completely different paths from the same like stimulus.
I didn't sell any business for 30 billion.
Back then it was I did not start a $30 million business. I started a $300 business.
Yeah, but I think that also shows your courage, right? And your clarity. For me,
No, no,
I
no,
just
no, no.
felt,
It's stupidity and naivety.
I don't know, what's yours, Alan?
Well, if being stupid makes me 30 mil, I would love to be stupid today. I'll be stupid every day.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
There's the ignorance of youth, guys.
Oh man, there's a lot of brilliance in there, a lot of bootstrapping.
Yeah. I mean,
Just
and
blind
what's
faith.
interesting is that I think Alvin at that point of time there was no I believe that most of us wanted to be a consultant, a banker, a lawyer, a doctor, right? Being entrepreneur wasn't really something that was widely accepted or was not in vogue unlike today. Yeah. So I,
Yeah.
I Yeah, I think even when I left my banking job, I started the New Savvy. That was my first foray into founding a company, and I wanted to do it for fun. I actually had health issues, so I left my job, and I thought to myself, I've been very lucky throughout my whole journey. I've achieved a lot of things that I wanted. I have bought, uh, so one of the first financial goals I have was to buy a HDB, as I was sharing earlier, right? At 21 years old.
That was
Um,
the result of one specific course in SMU that changed your life.
yeah, that was, yeah. I mean, I think we all lived in 06, 07, where everything was going up, uh, stock market, rental. It's almost like the past few years. And I think at that point of time, only my mom was working and we couldn't afford any increase in rent. So I always live with the fear of not having a home, right? And like I mentioned, I always wanted, and I thought to myself, okay, you know what? Being young and dumb and naive, right? I said I want to buy a home for my family, and it just means securities to me. And being 21, I really didn't realize how expensive HDBs are. I thought, it can't be that expensive, right? So in that particular course that you are currently teaching, I actually Googled, how much does a HDB cost, and it was like I think about 500,000. And I got really shocked because to me, how can I, a very ordinary, very, very plain 21-year-old, right, with no special talent, afford that? So that was the start of my financial journey, and also of how setting financial goal, being very clear of what I wanted. I managed to achieve that. And I think during my health scare, I thought to myself, I've been very, very blessed. How can I help others? Because when you look at people around your age, right? They were at that time they were complaining about, HDB being very expensive. And it is. So for a lot of us who don't have, financial um gifts from our parents, I think it's very important to make very good financial decisions. Yeah. And that was why I started the New Savvy.
Well, again, it boils back down to purpose, right? It can't be just a business or an idea that we have some passing interest in. That is not going to keep you going because business, all of us went through it, right? The initial stages when business was tough, you don't know where your revenue is coming in. You don't know whether your team is going to stay intact. You don't know if your customers are going to renew or even like buy more things from you. You don't know if your product or service is good enough. Uh, in spite of all these like challenges, you've got to keep going. And unless you have something stronger, right, like a purpose or a problem that you really want to solve and you can like obsess about, I think it's very, very hard to really grow a business. And that's what people I think these days tend to miss out on. Like they see the glory of like successful entrepreneurs and CEOs like Bezos and Elon Musk, and they want that, but they don't see the journey that it takes, right, to actually get there. It means like sleepless nights, anxiety, stress, burnout, or whatnot, right? And that is what's necessary to have that purpose to keep you going.
Actually, I have a very interesting story about this. So, which highlights, I mean, I think I about 1.5 years after I started the New Savvy, we were growing quickly and we wanted to raise our Series A, right? And what happened is we got hacked. So,
Uh, I I know
yeah,
this story. You were like telling me about it.
yeah, and we have 1,000 over articles. And everything was wiped out, right? I mean, it's very dramatic. You can actually see as the days goes by, you just there was something wrong with the website. I just can't figure out why. But I think after the fourth day, everything was gone, and and then I mean, it was a flurry of events. We got other developers to help us. We had three backups, right? And then they demanded 30 bitcoins. The hackers demanded 30 bitcoins. Yeah.
Wow.
But what I mean, we never really recovered it. In fact, even after 2 months after we rebuilt the site, I have to call like, the telco saying, hey, can you please take me down from unsafe site because we got hacked and all that because we were actually put on unsafe site. We have never really recovered, but even during those times, I think it was very traumatizing for me. first, you have to lead a team, right? Number two, I'm also answerable to investors and to our readers. But also, I think on a personal scale, like what you say, it highlights all your inadequacies and all your weaknesses. And then, you ask yourself, why are you doing this? And who are you to think that you can even solve this problem, right?
Yeah, exactly. Man, so do you end up paying that 30 Bitcoin ransom or
No, we never. Yeah, I mean, the good thing is, we actually had a lot of help from other developers. I think, I think I find technical people a very special breed of people. They have all this sense of justice. So they were all helping me pro bono, right? But we never paid. We tried to rebuild the site. I actually wanted to just give up, and I remember drinking myself every night. And one day I just said, okay, if I don't do this, let me write down everything I can do, right? Like including going back to the bank. And I was like, why do you want to be a founder, right? Because you actually earn a lot more money in a corporate. Most people do. It's more stable. You don't have the stress is different. I mean, in corporate, you have a lot of stress, but I think being a founder is like being a parent. It's 24/7.
yeah, never ends,
And
never
Were you,
stops.
were you
everything matters
sing
so much. Huh?
were you single when that happened?
Was I single? No. Why?
I was thinking, do you think that was why the engineers were helping?
No. Actually, I was dating a startup founder, and his engineers helped me also. Yeah, I wrote an
Oh,
eight
that was
thousand
due
word
rest.
essay. Huh? Yeah, 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 yeah.
That was due rest.
But also, I think it kind of highlighted, everything that I wasn't good at, like which is technical knowledge, right? And it was really a period where I dig deep and really wonder, what is this, right? Like, why am I doing this? And yeah, I mean, going back to Alvin's point, it really highlights the purpose beyond yourself, and I think for Alan and Alvin, it's really about helping people and making sure that you do a good job for the people that you're trying to help.
Yeah, when I was brought up, I think I was really like having these values of responsibility drilled into me, and that I think is something that I hold very core to myself, right? Responsibility to my commitments to my customers, to my team, to my co-founders. I think that's something that is one of my primary drivers as well. What about Alan? Do you have any like stories where your site gets hacked, your business is just inaccessible for many days and things like that?
I mean, I think throughout the entrepreneurship journey, there's been a lot of times where people prompt, this is really what you want to do. Actually, this began even from the very beginning. So for me, when I was a kid, right, I hated studying. So, I was from the normal academic stream, and then couldn't make it to JC, so I went to poly. And then my parents were more or less thinking that, there's probably no chance that this guy's gonna go to university. And then when I didn't make it, they were like, "Oh my God, they must have gotten the name wrong, but never mind, we'll take it." And then when I finally completed my studies, and I told them that, and when I completed my degree, right, in my undergrad studies, and then they were thinking that finally our son can go find a job in the bank and get like decently paid. And then we told them, and then I told my parents that, I'm not going to find a job because I want to start my own business. And then they totally flipped. And then I remember one day my dad came in with an article from Straits Times saying, hey, SMU grads finance degree tends to start from this pay to this pay. The top echelon starts with this pay. Even if you're not at the top echelon, you are getting quite decent pay. Are you sure this is what you want to do? Yeah. So I think a lot of times there were a lot of stones that were thrown. I mean, okay, I think people do it out of the goodness of their hearts, especially for my parents. They were fearful for me, and quite fairly, right? There's a lot of risk in entrepreneurship, but there were also times where even like my SMU schoolmates who after graduation they all have like good paying bank jobs. Couple of years after I started out, I'm still struggling, and then they were asking, when are you finally going to get a proper job? So I think throughout my life, there's always been a lot of like hurdles. But then I realized that if you believe the mission, that's what always going to keep you going. Throughout our days, we've been hit by many different crises as well. I think COVID hit us pretty hard because we were actually just our story dates back to about 2020 when COVID first happened. We had a series of launch event that was already been designed. It has been planned out by the various partners, restaurant partners, and then we even have event halls that was secured. We were going to host this big launch event in SMU actually, School of Law, because that was the time where School of Law was just unveiled. We even had ministers as guests of honor that was already secured. The media has been seeded. Everyone RSVP'd they were going to come, and then suddenly COVID hit and no event was allowed. And then no dining was allowed. And then suddenly, everybody was saying, we got to push back our launch. And then a lot of things was dependent on that launch because we were building up the story, right? We're getting the product into the market, we're getting feedback, we're getting media buzz, and then with this, it builds up a nice story for us to raise our next round. And if you, as a startup, before you launch your product, you're basically in burn mode. Right, the first 5 years of our project is a lot of R&D, it's a lot of clinical studies, filing for patents, because we really want to make products that work. We don't want to sell fluff. In order to make sure it works, that we had to do a lot of tests, a lot of R&D, and a lot of these clinical studies. So we were all ramping up to this big launch, right? So that we can raise around, and then we can expand the team, and then we can provide more jobs, and then we can get more solutions to more people who need it. And then suddenly COVID just hit. And then we have to pivot everything. There was no launch. There was no revenue coming at that point in time, at least not on time. And then suddenly you may not be able to raise around, but you have people to feed, you have people to take care of. So you have to go into the office, you have to face them. You have to. I think one of the challenge that I constantly face is also how much of the brunt of outside world should we be sharing with also our people, because our team is also made up of like a mixture of people who are more experienced and some of them are also a lot younger. So yeah, when and for those who have dependents at home, whether it be kids or elder parents, we also are very mindful that they need a secure income. So I think when crisis like that hit us, it was very difficult times. It was anxiety. It was very difficult to sleep. Every day it was long nights. It was talking to a lot of investors, talking to a lot of partners. Can we launch earlier? And then pivoting our plans, then pivoting the product. And then because we're a physical product business, right? Pivoting product takes time because you need to get a production plan out, and then you need to get your partners done on board, and then they have to get their marketing team on board. And at the point in time, most people are just trying to survive. Restaurants were not allowed to operate, which Anna would know very well. They were only allowed to do like delivery sales, right? So nobody was in the right frame of mind to launch anything new. But then at the same time, we also had to keep our people alive. And then I remember I had this talk with the rest of the company, and I just promised them that we're going to do everything that we can to avoid any retrenchment, to avoid any no pay leave, to avoid any pay cut. So even if it means that the founder is going to take a hit on their shareholdings, if we can raise capital to keep everybody alive, this is what we're going to do. And then, fortunately, we went to various investors, and then they saw our technology. They saw that, especially on the corporate side, we had quite a number of food companies that invested. They see that COVID is going to come and go, but diabetes is still going to be here, right? Our technology is still going to be needed. We can supercharge many of their future products when they will launch in the decades to come. So they will bring the support, and then we got the funding, and then I went back to my team and I said that I've kept my promise. We kept everybody alive. So that was something that. Well, I was very relieved. I think, especially for those that are dependents, they were relieved as well. But that was just one of many instances where I think believing in the mission is very important. It's very important. I think if we didn't believe that we're doing something important for the world, probably we would just go look for a job. It's so much easier to look for a job.
Yeah. I love what you did because I mean it really shows that's leadership, right? And it's not what you say, but what you do that truly represents you. And I think in good times it's really easy to say that you do things, but it's the bad times that leaders, people are able to show their true values by what they do. And I think what you did when times were bad and you had to really act on your word and find that kind of capital to keep the company alive and keep the team intact, I think really shows leadership. So yeah, kudos
Thank
to you
you.
on that. Yeah.
Well, I learned from you guys.
I think that's the responsibility of a business leader, a founder, an entrepreneur. It's not just our lives already. At first, when I was growing my business, I thought it was just about making money. And then after that, I realized our customers depended on us. Then I realized the team depended on us, or in fact, like the co-founders, my co-founder and I, right? And there was so much responsibility. I couldn't wake up one day and say, you know what? I don't feel like doing it. I'm just gonna let go of everything. I can't. There's a team that I need to take care of. There are customers that have their businesses depend on us. And that was something that, really shook me and showed me that entrepreneurship wasn't just about a simple like, money making venture. It was so much deeper than that.
I think
Yeah.
I agree with both of you. There was one I think I said this before when you were all of us started wanting to do a business, whether to solve a problem or to make money, right? But ultimately, I think we are actually, we are responsible for the people that employ us other than our customers. And by return, you're actually responsible for their families.
Yeah.
And that's a very great
Yeah.
responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was like always there was one time I think I just got a one of those like panic loops or anxiety loops because you start thinking, holy crap, sometimes these people that are in your teams are like the breadwinners of their family. Sometimes they are the sole breadwinners, and suddenly the weight of responsibility becomes so much more magnified. Yeah, but
Exactly.
that's
I think,
entrepreneurship.
do you remember when there's one time during COVID, at the start of COVID, I remember texting that, in our group chat, right? I was like, I'm very evil. That was before lockdown, before circuit breaker. And I told you all, I just had some talks with my partners and, we were saying what is the worst that can happen, right? And the worst is that we shut down our businesses. And I told them like, okay, I think my only request is let's not let anyone go, right? That's all. We can don't take money, we can don't, but let us take care of everyone. Even if we have to put them on a no pay leave, let's just try to keep everyone on payroll until we survive. And no, none of us could have predicted how bad the past, I mean, how bad COVID was, right? I mean, circuit breaker, all that. And I think it's a very harrowing time for most people. It's very traumatic, right? And but also I guess you learn a lot and you become more resilient and your teams actually work better with each other.
Yeah, I remember you were telling us that you were doing deliveries. Like all of the founders were doing deliveries, the partners, the
In
founders.
their nice cars.
Yeah, some of them even had a very fancy cars, right? Like, and they were doing deliveries with that. But I mean, that is again leadership, right? I think leadership isn't just being a manager. It's also something that needs you to demonstrate the things that you're demanding for. If you're demanding for punctuality, then you better be punctual. If you're demanding for people to be responsible, then you should be responsible yourself, right? And if you're demanding for people to go the extra mile for the customer, then you as the founder better make sure that you are also somebody that will go the extra mile for the customer. And that I think to me is something that differentiates a good leader from somebody that maybe is just, not so good.
Actually, talking about customer service, I must say that, I was very impressed with you and your co-founder. When I first started the news, you have to understand this is like a 10-year banker, okay? I know nothing, and the website was down. And this was the day, I don't know why I remember all these things. The day before a public holiday, if I'm not wrong, it's a Good Friday. And actually your co-founder called me at 11 to troubleshoot the problem at 11 a.m. and I was at 11 p.m. and I was like, okay, this is amazing. And then they managed to resolve it within a few hours. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes there will be calls at 3 a.m. too. Sometimes people will just call just to talk to us. Like they didn't have a problem. I think their problem was that they were lonely and then they just
Lonely.
like,
They found
hey.
how you look and they decided to call you.
Yeah.
Hey,
Can
Elvin,
we
can I
do
see your
that
pets?
now? Can we do that now with CLDY?
You know,
Like,
Clouding
so,
Plus.
so yeah, I don't handle CLDY calls right now, but my co-founder doesn't handle CLDY calls also. But that was the way back, man, when we had no team. We had to really feel everything ourselves and like calls, emails. That was all done by us. So yeah, that was
My
how we
phone
got
that's
number,
started.
my,
how.
my phone number is the reservation for Mrs. Fur and Suta. Like the actual phone
Like,
number, mobile
like,
number.
hey.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, what do you want? Okay, I'll order. Can I? Yeah.
I think it's something again like what leadership means. I remember there was an engineer, a software engineer that we had a programmer, who told me something couldn't be done, and I was like, it can be done. And I took out some time, like a few hours, to actually show him that it's possible. And I think it's really powerful when you're able to show your team that you can do the things that you're asking them to do. It lends a lot of respect and a lot of they start to believe in the things that you say and ask of them as well. So that kind of leadership is kind of like servant leadership, I think, showing that you're down in the trenches with them, you're willing to do the work that you're asking them to do, and you're not afraid of getting your hands dirty. Yeah.
Yeah. But this also reminds me that it can spark a different reaction depending on who you're talking to. I think those that are driven, they start to realize that, hey, my boss can do it, I can do it too. But I also met people who I've gone through the same exercise with them, right? We can close certain customers, why can't you? And they say, and the response is just, boss, you're good. I'm not as good. Not the intended effect. And we
Yeah,
decided
then I mean
probably we
after
need a
that,
personnel change.
yeah, depends on personality, depends on character as well, and also depends on like the kind of training systems we put into our business, right? So I always believe that a founder, let's say they can do like 100% of the job, right? That kind of performance. When you start hiring a team, you're not going to be able to find somebody that's able to perform 100%, but you can find somebody that maybe performs at about 60, 70%. But you can find many people like that. And that's how you start building a team, right? The idea of a team is not so that you can replicate yourself, but the team can support everybody, and everybody's workload gets like distributed and responsibilities get
Exactly.
distributed.
And to do that, you need systems, and to build the systems, read your book.
Yes. Actually, I gave your books as gifts to so many people. It's not,
Yeah, thanks. I hope they enjoy it. I know I saw some stories being posted. Um, yeah, I actually think this is the last run of the books already. So
Whoa.
yeah, probably not gonna be having physical copies anymore. It's just way too much of a hassle. So everything is
Wow.
probably gonna be online or through Amazon. Yeah. So these are
So
limited
it's
edition books.
limited edition,
ah,
exactly.
I still have
We
a
can sell on
few.
Carousel now.
Not now. After there's no more.
After 5 years.
Or
Each book
maybe we
only
should
two
buy the
thousand
remaining
dollars.
copies, Alan.
Yeah. Corner the market.
Yeah.
Market manipulation. All the finance stocks are coming
Monopoly,
in.
monopoly.
Oh my
And
God,
then we will sell option to buy the book.
the finance people are coming out, man. Oh. Yeah. So that's how we all got started. I love the fact that we all had a purpose and were driven. I know Alan pivoted his business, right? Why was
Yeah.
the original business of Soyato, the low calorie soy
Ice cream.
ice cream,
Yeah.
why was
Mhm.
that something that you wanted to exit at that point of time?
Yeah, because at that point we were already in like major supermarkets. We started having some early exports, but in the
Customer.
consumer packaged food, oh, thank you so much. In the consumer food space, I think you do need branding power. You do need money in order to go to the next phase. There's only so long you can stay online. Very quickly you hit that ceiling, right? And you need to go offline, then you need money. And so it was at that point the choices were raise money for the ice cream project or double down on the alchemy project because we were running both at the same time. But in
Oh,
terms of impact, in terms of potential, in terms of just my family history, I think alchemy spoke a lot more to me. It made a lot more sense. That's why we had to divest one, and it's very difficult to also raise funds for your projects if you tell investors, hey, I'm also working on something else. If your attention are divided, I think they're going to be very, very, very concerned. In
yeah.
fact, I remember the first term sheet we signed and the first investment document that we signed, it mandated that we had to stay in the company for at least 3 years and we had to be full time. So
Mm,
I already saw it coming, and I think that if I put myself into their shoes, this is what I will expect as well. Otherwise, why do I invest? What am I investing in? In the early stage, we're investing in the people, and the people's not here half the time.
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
3 years is actually not very long, right?
3 years is not too long. Yeah, actually. So, but that's not too bad. And the subsequent agreements that we signed, I didn't have that clause, but I think it's also very clear that we're very committed to this. crisis after crisis, we had a holding power, and then we pivoted in different ways. We started the project for Alchemy on trying to make more of the starchy foods and staples like rice and bread healthier, so that you have stable blood sugars after. Right now, we pivoted more into also sugar control, so we help to reduce sugar in things like cakes and cookies. And we started pivoting also because it's just a lot of market feedback. A lot of wish lists. A lot of people say that, if you can make this cookie sugar-free, you can make the cake, the ice cream sugar-free, lower fat, I'm just going to buy, just take my money. So I think this is also one thing that we learn a lot over the years. Is really important to keep our ears on the ground, listen to people. Yeah, and then no matter how big you become, even though we're not big yet, I hope that I'll always remember that no matter how big we become, right, we got to spend some time on the ground, understanding the customers, which is, I think, what Alvin and his partner has done very well. Doing every single call, maybe not every single call, doing some sales calls, some of the troubleshooting and customer service, I think is what really keeps you in the know of what's happening in your business. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So that's how we also ended up pivoting, and I'm really glad that we did, because right now we are in the phase where we're working with some international fast food restaurants, and that wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have this pivot. So yeah, I
Nice.
think pivot is like the only constant.
Yeah, yeah. And pivot not for pivot's sake, but pivot based
Yeah,
on what the market is requesting for. And sometimes that's the best way to find out, right? You just got to make sure that you're out there, you're talking to your customers, you're putting things out in the market and getting the feedback. I think a lot of entrepreneurs also ask me because of super scaling and all the people that I talk to. Sometimes they are just afraid of putting themselves out there and they're just looking for that perfect answer before they begin. But guess what? I think entrepreneurship is never something that you'll be able to have a perfect plan for. Everything's gonna change. I don't know what's gonna happen to my business tomorrow or the next week, right? Like if you ask me what happened like 6 months ago, no hell, even 3 months ago, I wouldn't have expected that, right? So there are so many changes, and I think change is the only constant that we can prepare ourselves for.
you what you said sparked so many thoughts in my head, because I've had people who come from like a very impressive history of corporate jobs, and they have this perfectionist mentality that everything must be perfect. And it really drove me crazy, because it takes you forever to build a perfect product. Sometimes there's only just two or three core attributes that people want in the product, and people are willing to buy. But then
Yeah,
they delay, but then we end up delaying launches, delaying campaigns, delaying things like that, because we're always trying to be perfect.
yeah.
So it drove me really crazy.
Yeah, that can't happen with businesses, especially at the start. We've got to be nimble. I think that's the only way businesses can stay ahead of, like, especially the big giants, right? MNCs cannot innovate or be as agile as small
Exactly.
businesses. And the nimbleness needs to be inherent in everybody, right? That difference between
Yeah,
perfection and progress needs to be clear, right? Progress over perfection. I think that's the mantra that
exactly.
entrepreneurs need to instill in their organizations.
So right now, when I recruit people, I try to look for, I mean, we need different skill set for different positions, obviously, but then the overarching qualities, I look for energy, I look for openness. People who comes in with like oversized baggage tend not to fit very well, because they'll be thinking, oh, I need to be perfect, I need to do this the old way, and
Yeah.
things are just going to come to a draggy stop.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's clarity over, the values and attributes that make up your company culture. Awesome. All right, I'm looking at the time and I'm cognizant of the fact that we are nearing our hard limit. And so these are two questions that I always ask guests on the 7 Minute Scaling Secrets podcast. And I'll ask this of both of you as well. The first question: what is the most important habit to be a successful entrepreneur? Let's start with Anna.
I will say consistency. So I think as an entrepreneur, you need to be consistent in the things that you do, the things that you say and your values. I think that's very important. I mean, it's a lot of what you preach, right? Whether it's fitness or, it's easy to get motivated and to get excited by new shiny, ideas, but you really need to have consistency to achieve your goals.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and I say that all the time too. It's not the intensity of things, it's really just being consistent and showing up on a daily basis, taking that small step towards your goal all the time.
That's why I'm consistently drinking.
Oh man, Sam is the one that's consistently doing. What about you, Alan?
I actually had consistency as one of my points, but fortunately not the only point and not my top point actually. Yeah, but I think for me, anyway, on building on the consistency fact, right? I also read a report, right? There was a study that was done across all successful entrepreneurs. They found that number one, you can't be stupid. But number two, being a genius also doesn't mean that you're gonna make the cut. Beyond a certain IQ threshold, right? It's all about work rate and consistency, being there, showing up every day. So this is something that I hold very dear to my heart. And I also remind my people and myself especially. But I think the number one habit I feel someone needs to have, and to be successful, is to have humility. Is to be humble. I think at the very start, when things don't work out, we need to put our egos aside. Whether we were the ones to make the wrong call or not, it doesn't matter. We just have to put our egos aside and try to find the root of the problem so that we can scale and grow to the next stage. And also, I do see this becoming ego and as well as humility becoming a big problem for people who has achieved some kind of success. Sometimes because of past success, they will feel that I cannot be wrong, or maybe this work then we should work now. But I think what I realized is that for companies and teams that has been successful over long periods of time, they are successful in long periods of time, not because they started being successful years ago. They're successful because they kept renewing their success over and over again. They review what has been happening in their business, whether the market has moved, and then they pivot over and over again. They renew the success over and over again. And I think this ties down to can only happen if someone is truly humble and approaches things with humility. So I think that would be the most important habit for me.
I
Oh,
think I
nice.
want to echo what Alan said, because being an entrepreneur, right, it's really a lesson in humility, right? Because you're always very humbled by how bad your products are and how much you even as a leader. I mean, stop laughing.
I'm humbled by my wallet.
Yeah, tell me about it and my life. No, but I mean, even as a leader, because you don't know everything, right? I mean, none of us
Yeah,
were born entrepreneurs. None of us were born a leader. We were never in like big organizations. So you really need to take feedback, and most of them are not great feedback, right? You have good ones, but a lot of them are not. Most of them are ways to improve. And also, I mean, if you're fundraising, I always say that being an entrepreneur is like kneeling on broken glass all the
Yeah.
time. I feel like I'm just begging everybody to give me something. Yeah. So you kind of need to have that humility to ask for help, to ask for funding, to ask
exactly.
feedback, right? And have same humility to actually really improve.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think humility is not just, something that shows that you can eat, economical rice or something. It's really a state of mind that allows you to be open to feedback, to changes, and from that always be nimble enough to pivot or to handle any changes in the major economic trends or the changing market demands or anything like that. Cool. And the second question, the last question of the episode, what advice would you give to another business owner? Let's start with Alan this time.
Hmm. Okay. I was going to relax for a few minutes.
I can go first.
I think for me, other than the mission, which I think I've spoken at length, the believing in what you do, being important because it gets you through challenges. I think the other strong advice would be to find product market fit early on. There's also been quite a number of studies that publish that the number one reason why startups die within the first 1 to 3 years is because they fail to establish product market fit.
Yeah.
And I think product market fit is also a function of timing. Sometimes we've seen good ideas that, ideas are really great, frankly, but they are so ahead of their time that they are probably not going to last until the point they launch the product. So I would think that, finding exercises, getting ways to test your product market fit would be very, very important.
Yeah. Can I
That's
give
true.
two?
Okay, Anna, let's do it. More value.
Overachievement, okay?
Yes.
No, okay. I think on top of what Alan said, I will say measure the right metrics and goals. A
Mm,
lot of entrepreneurs, I think a lot of us, because of the media and whatever is put out there, we tend to go for vanity metrics.
mm.
Mm,
But whether it's PR or exposure, and I realized that over the years that you really, really need to hunker down and be very focused on a few correct metrics. If you're not even optimizing for the right objectives, then you're doing it all wrong. And I will say that, okay, I guess this is a good ending, but the second advice is to actually find a group of people who understand your struggles, whether it's a super scaling circles and friends like the two of you, right? I think both of you and a lot of my entrepreneur friends are people that can understand what I'm going through and can give me actionable insights and advice. I have a lot of friends in corporates, and sometimes I tell them my issues, but to be honest, I mean, to be fair, they are not equipped to share with me some of the how to handle these problems, right? But if let's say today I have a fundraising problems, I have a marketing or branding problem, I think I can go to the two of you and ask for advice, whether it's to optimize my operations or to scale my businesses. Yeah. So I think it's very important to have a good group of people that you can depend on.
I love that.
Exactly.
That's what we're doing at Super Scaling, building a community. Yeah. Awesome. I mean, my journey with Vodian was quite lonely. So I know what you're talking about, that network, that support is absolutely crucial. The audience will probably want to learn how to reach out to you and your business. So Alan, what's the best way for people to reach out to you or your business?
I guess if it's to me personally, Instagram would be the good one because my profile is public. Anyone can text me. If
The
it's to
blue
my
tick.
business, it's a worthless tick. Well, if it's to write into my business, I guess you can reach out to us at hello@alchemyfoodtech.com.
All right, I'll have that linked down in the show notes below. Also, Anna, what about you?
Uh, well, LinkedIn or Instagram for me, under my name, Anna Hautanto, and email will be partner@thenewsavvy.com.
Cool. I'll also have that linked down below so that people can reach out to you guys. Hey, thank you everybody. Thanks to the both of you, Ellen, Anna. This has been another exciting episode. This time, super exciting because we've got two of you on the show. So thanks everybody for listening in. Please remember to like, subscribe, share this episode with somebody that will enjoy this episode as well. And I look forward to hearing and talking to you guys in the next episode. Take care.
Thanks, Alvin.
Thank
Bye.
you.